Hey guys, how do you like my new celebration cap? Pretty weird. Anyways, I made these with my newest panels, these Polypanel Play panels. These things are compatible with all the other Polypanels in the Polypanel system, but what makes them special is that their connections are a little looser, so it's easier for young ones to stick them together and tear them apart, but they're also thicker, so they're really strong and robust. So, you know, they're really fun for just playing around with and being able to just throw it around. That was loud. I made the connection for Polypanels really strong because I want them to be usable for functional things. So there's that, but now we've got these Polypanel Play panels, which are a little easier to work with. So, you know, if you've got kids that you want to share Polypanels with, I'd recommend trying some of these out. You can download and print them for free at MyMiniFactory. But anyways, that's not the point of this video. The point is that we're announcing the winners for this Polypanel competition. There are so many submissions, way more than 3 that deserve to win, but unfortunately I can only name 3 winners. But that said, I still want to recognize all the great panels. So without further ado, let's look through these awesome submissions, and then at the very end of this video, I'll tell you who won. Cool. Alright, so here we are on the submission page for the Polypanel competition, and let's just go ahead and look through them. Check out this Polypanel dripper watering system by Blaine Wordley. Blaine made a bunch of different parts that work with 4mm irrigation tubes that link the parts together, allowing you to build this kind of modular drip irrigation system. And you can see it also just uses a 2-liter bottle where you put the water in, and that distributes the water to these different little compartments and helps you grow some plants. It's very interesting and definitely a cool concept. I love the idea of doing a lot of upcycling, and of course growing plants is always a good cause. I have to say I'm dubious about the success that this would have with PLA. You can already see here in this photo that it's kind of dripping, and PLA has this tendency to sweat. Even if it's sealed, somehow the water just kind of seeps through. So I think this could work, but maybe with a different material, maybe PETG, ABS could work. It would be fun to experiment with for sure, and it's a very cool concept. I'd also like to see how much you can expand this system. Then we've got this awesome submission by Angus at Maker's Muse. I'm sure most of you know him quite well. And Angus, well, this guy already had a system ready to go. Apparently in his university class, he created this modular robotic system using laser cut panels, very similar to the Polypanels. So as soon as he saw my Polypanel system, he was able to whip up this Polypanel version of his original designs. And they came together really well. He made this awesome video. He built a fully functioning robot. There it is. And he even, had this first-person view, which is really fun. That was so awesome that we had similar ideas and we're able to combine them like that. So big thanks to Angus for putting that together and making a video so quickly. I'm impressed. Here we've got some beautiful ornamental panels by Timur Gimranov. You might recognize these designs from my last competition with MyMiniFactory, because he made some really beautiful puzzles using similar designs, and he was actually featured in that video. So check that out. It's always nice to have more ornamental panels like this, just to spice up all your other Polypanel creations. Here we've got some Lego panels. A lot of people submitted Lego Polypanels. It's kind of the obvious thing that had to be done, so I really appreciate that. Then we've got this interesting ball and socket connector. Ball and socket joints are really cool. Now you can see that we've got some pretty thin columns here, and they're printed vertically, which makes them quite weak. So I'm not sure that this would withstand much abuse at all, but having a ball and socket is definitely a cool idea. Here's another really neat idea by Neil. He took Polypanels and 3D printed fabric and combined the two in order to make watch straps. Here's a submission by Brody Fairhall. He made these PVC pipe connectors that work with Polypanels so that you can build really large structures without having to spend hundreds and hundreds of hours printing Polypanels. It makes sense to use more abundant materials to create large structures and then just using the polypanels for special connections and things like that. So this is definitely a direction that I love, and a lot of people did similar stuff like this as well. The more the merrier. Trevor posted this polypanel hexagon because I forgot to upload my own. I've done it now, but thanks for getting on top of that. And here's some more submissions by Brody. Brody was very active with his submissions. This one is so cool. It's an LED matrix that is printed out, and it uses individual LEDs that are fed through these tiny little slots, and you wire that up, and if you know electronics better than I do, you can make some really cool lo-fi screens with this. I just love the idea of screens made with polypanels because you can imagine connecting these together and making infinitely scalable screens. And not only that, they can wrap around strange shapes and objects. So this is super cool. I'd love to see it done with the other polypanel shapes as well, so that's something to do going forward. But this was already done in a very nice way, and Brody also did a really good job with his photography. Notice how he has very clear and easy to understand photos. He shows different angles, different parts. Definitely well put together. And then here's another submission of Brody's, this really awesome robot kit, similar to what Angus did. What's really cool about Brody's kit is that he made these tank treads. They look super cool, and they're pretty much just those half-size polypanels, and they didn't really require any modification of the joints. It's just a very clever use of the existing polypanel system. And you know, he shot this really awesome video of it in action. He also designed several other parts on top of that. So there's a lot of different robot parts. All these different fan covers, servo holders. This is a pretty big and comprehensive kit. And once again, he photographed it really well. Look at that, he's even got a printed bearing and a bearing holder, so you have different options. Very nice stuff. Here's another pretty cool one, a little cat house. So this was actually printed with some big polypanels, and as you can see, there's some really weird shapes, but they still have those standard connections. I definitely like the architecture, and I can imagine this being scaled up into a full-size human dome. That would be cool. We've got some action cam adapters from Brody once again. This gear panel system is really cool. I love the idea of these gears being the correct size so that you can just snap panels together and the gears are already perfectly engaged. The one thing here that concerns me is maybe the thickness of this pin. It's another one of those vertical columns, so I'm not sure how much that could withstand, but gears and polypanels I think are an awesome combination. Here are a couple more electronic panels by Hugh Evans that let you connect the Raspberry Pi Zero. And I love that a lot of different people submitted connectors for different Raspberry Pis and other electronic components. It's just exactly what I wanted, you know, all these different people from the community coming together. And by everyone doing a bit of work, we get this huge collection that we can all take advantage of. This is pretty neat. This is a customizable phone case made by Renee Taylor. She's a young designer. She's just getting started in 3D design, and I'm already quite impressed by what she managed to pull off. So this is kind of a remix of other designs. She got another Samsung Galaxy case, added the polypanel connectors to that, and then she made polypanel modules for all kinds of different fidget toys, and you know, we've got a picture frame here. All these different connectors that you might want to add to your phone, or even as a keychain here. That one's really cool, a little keychain holder for your fidget panel. Here's a polypanel carabiner. Awesome, I love it. A little twist plug and slot. You know, these are the little things that when they're all combined, we can make just about anything. I was quite tickled by this little polypanel egg holder. And you know what? It looks pretty nice compared to a standard egg carton. If you want a cute egg holder, there you go. I also like this user submitted photo with a 3D printed egg. That's pretty fun. Now this one is super cool. This is a shaft system created by Brian Allison. And so it's got gears, it's got shafts, it's got these special panels that connect to each other in the center to reinforce. I mean, that's a separate submission, but it all works together. So Brian actually has several designs that he combined to make this really cool shaft system. This photo shows a beam engine, and not only did he take the photo, but he actually created these little moving GIF animations that I really like. Check that out. Yeah, that's super cool. An awesome way to demonstrate his design as well. And gosh, look, there's so much work that went into this. There's this shaft system here, a parallel linkage that helps this beam move properly. We've got the wheel here, we've got the shaft and the gears. It's very, very impressive. We've got another Lego Polypanel, a Polypanel die. Ooh, this one was also really aesthetically pleasing. This is a 3D printable pentagon tile that holds onto textiles. So if you have little fabric scraps, you can press them into this Polypanel and it makes a super cool, colorful look. There's also this photo that I loved because this looks more like a speaker. So I imagine if you were building a Polypanel boombox or something, which would be awesome, somebody do it, but this would be an awesome way to add speaker panels that look really nice. Here's another pipe adapter. This is one where, once again, that vertical printing gets really thin, so watch out for how you print. I'm not sure this would withstand the stretching that it needs to snap a pipe into place. Here we've got some clips, a Polypanel wheel, which I actually designed a wheel too. I designed my own wheel here. And snaps in and out. This one was made for the Polypanel Kid system, so we've got wheels. Download that one, download this one, whichever one you like. Options are great. Here's another really simple but clever design by Libby. It's this unfoldable Polypanel. So just by adding a few little surfaces right there, you can now not bend the Polypanel all the way back in on itself. So that's good for creating large flat surfaces if you're making containers out of these Polypanels and things like that. I also really liked this Flexi Square. It's just a flexible Polypanel and I don't know what to do with it yet, but it looks great and I know flexible prints are always really fun, so I'm a big fan of that. Here's a Polybox. So this has a hinge based on that Polypanel and it's also got a little snap connector so that you can have, you know, little Polypanel storage pillbox type things. You could stick a bunch of them together. It's cool. Ooh, I really like these as well. See what I'm talking about? I like way too many of these, but that's awesome. But Joshua Stanfield made these little Polypanel beads. So they're little tiny versions of the connector, but they also have holes through the connection so that you could feed string through it and make different types of jewelry. So he also made these charms, which are really cool, and different kinds of connectors that all work together to make some really cool jewelry. Here we've got a buckle, another one by Brody, photographed really nicely once again. Something like this would be great to use with Polypanel bags like the ones I designed, making it so you could snap it on or off, maybe even a Polypanel backpack. And here we've got a Polyplanet. It's a good name. And basically Matt made all these little tiny landscapes on Polypanels and you can print out the ones you like, snap them together, and build your own little Polyplanet. That's super cool. Here's another handy print. It's these slotted Polypanels that let you slide them together into these cross sections. That just gives you new possibilities with Polypanels. Once again, it's one of those things where I can't even imagine everything that can be done with a simple Polypanel like this, but if you ever need one, it's right here. I think it would be good for creating little separators inside of a dresser or something if you want to use it for organization. This is another simple but cool one, just a little wall hanger. So you can screw this into your wall and display your Polypanel creations super easily. And that could be really fun because you could just have this connector stuck on the wall and, you know, whenever you feel like changing things up, you stick up a new Polypanel creation. So that's pretty cool. Here we have more Lego Polypanels. This is a wind-up mechanism for Polypanels, which is super cool. It's got one of those flat springs, which I love. I was hoping someone would make this. It's a Polypanel outlet, which lets you connect things to your outlet. Here we've got a little string light set up. I think it would also be really cool for building a little stand for your phone, so while you're charging it on the wall, you can have it standing right there as well. Here we've got another electronic kit. This one's cool because it just uses very simple electronics, just an LED here, a diode there, and you can clip different things into place. It seems like a really cool educational model. This could have been a submission for my puzzle competition as well. It's these mazes, and by snapping together different polypanel combinations, you're basically creating new mazes. They all connect right at this center point, so all of these panels can connect to each other in different orientations and make a new maze every time. We've got a camera mount here. Now this uses a thread that's printed. Once again, those vertical rods, they're kind of tricky because I can see this snapping off inside of your camera's mount, and that would not be super fun. So while the idea is great, I would probably use a hardware steel bolt that snaps into the panel instead of printing the thread itself. Here we've got a Polypanel wallet. Nice flat wallet, that's interesting. We've got some servo actuator motor holders. So add this to your Polypanel robotics kit if that's what you're interested in. Here's a little Polypanel cottage, which he said he built this diorama, but I'm pretty sure this is a render. I'm almost certain this is a render. Don't try to sneak one past me and say you built this. Well, that was one page of submissions, so we gotta go fast. Here we've got a Polypanel belt. That's great. We've got more motor holders. This is a stepper mount, a Polypanel Eiffel Tower. You know, the Eiffel Tower is like a classic print, and this Polypanel version seems easier to print, and it's got some really cool details on it. I like that. We've got another camera mount. We've got a little photo holder. This would work well with that wall mount, you know? Connect that with this and you can hang business cards and photos on your wall. These are really nice too. These panels are made to fit the extrusions that a lot of 3D printers are made of, like the Ender 3 or the Creality printers or TiVo printers. A lot of printers use these aluminum supports. And so this is really cool. You can stick a polypanel onto your printer, and then from there you can build something to hold your camera, or maybe even a spool holder, or just a filament guide like Elliot did here. So that's a really cool little set and an awesome addition to the polypanels. This is a little adapter, so if you want to print some 75% scale polypanels, you can use this adapter to connect the regular size and the smaller ones. Here we've got a little teeter-totter, an LED strip holder. That could be fun. You could combine that with the 3D printer mount, put LEDs around your printer. I really like this Raspberry Pi holder. It was designed very well, especially this little flat spring. It just looks super cute, and it's made for a functional purpose of snapping the panel into place. Christopher made these special polypanels that connect to your Nintendo Switch Joy-Con controllers, which I think would be really awesome combined with Nintendo's Labo kit, because I know they have that little robot thing where you make the little critters move around with the vibration of the controllers. So that's exactly what these polypanels would be great for. You can also just make special Joy-Con configurations using all the different polypanels, or you could mount a phone holder, or you could add lights, or do anything. That's super cool. Here's another little 4-way joint, a polypanel spool. I'm not sure what you would need that for, but I guess you could make it expand if you want to add really large spools. So that could be interesting. Here's a fun little poly person, another one of those little decorative panels that's just fun to play around with. Here's another really cool decorative one. It's a Polypanel Palace. So this actually hasn't been printed out yet, but it looks like it'll print, and it's really cute. It's got these little roof tiles and these nice columns, little stair steps. You can make a fun little playhouse out of these. Here's another submission by Joshua, this very interesting 3-way snap connector. And once again, it works with that whole system he created for making jewelry. He even made this, is that a cat collar? That's pretty cute. Here's a Decagon Deca panel, just because I didn't make it, so that's good. More of these little snap connectors that Joshua made. We've got a shirt clip here, so maybe you can combine this with the fabric polypanels and make yourself a super nerdy bow tie. Here we've got 3D printed Polypanel Catan, and a few people did this because, you know, you see hexagons and you think Settlers of Catan. So I really like this. It's got an interesting 2D graphic approach using layer swaps. It looks really nice. Here we've got a little square panel that perfectly fits a Nintendo Switch game. So maybe you connect that with the Joy-Con mounts and you can hold your games on your controller, something like that. Another decorative panel, these triangle fractals. Another Arduino mount, add that to your electronic kit. This special panel has one of those center connectors as well, but it's diagonal. So what will you do with that? We've got a joint for a dowel, so that's similar to the PVC joints, but this one's made for a 7/8 inch wood dowel, and you can screw it into place. So that'll make some really sturdy connections, which I like. And that's a nice little foot mount too. That looks really nice. Ethan also did a great job with photography. He did a lot of different submissions. Let's just look at them. Different dowel holders, all with the same color, which just creates a nice system. And this one's also really cool. It's an LED strip ring. So you can make a light ring for your camera. You can make a cool lamp like he did here. I mean, check this out. He built a whole desk. That's awesome. These panels have ball joints built into them like that, so they rotate. These panels are gapless. So if you want to create a nice sheet of polypanels, you can print these out and there won't be as many gaps as with the standard square polypanels. This is a robotic kind of panning thing. You connect a servo and you can make that rotate. This one's very interesting. It holds onto pool noodles, so you can connect a bunch of them together so you can make a huge raft. Or what James actually did was create this shield to protect cars from hailstorms. Totally wild. Here's a filament holder, so maybe you could use that with the Polypanel spool if you just want to live the Polypanel life to its fullest. Another electronics kit here. This one's really cute. It's got a little battery connector and a light bulb. I remember doing projects like this in elementary school, so maybe going forward teachers will use polypanels instead. Here's a 20-sided dice. We've got more multi-connectors. We've got this foldable phone stand, once again made with these custom shapes. So some really strange shaped polypanels that come together to create this phone holder. And who knows what else they could be used for. Here we have a globe polypanel, Settlers of Catan. Here's the non-polypanel version, but Robert created the polypanel version. In any case, it looks really awesome, although maybe difficult to play. All right, that's 2 pages. Polypanel Make Anything logo. Easy way to win me over. Here we've got a whole set of letters, so if you want to create polypanel name tags, there you go. We've got a locking polypanel system here. It'd be interesting to see someone make a puzzle box out of polypanels. We've got a sliding square, so you can create sliding mechanisms. An SD card holder, great for organization, as well as a bit holder, a board clip, a suction cup mount. So if you want to stick a polypanel to a glass window or have it inside the shower, there you go. There's a panel for that. Trevor made these really nice pixel art pieces using different square panels. So here's a dolphin, here's Mario. Those should have been submitted as a community print, not as its own model, but they're still very cool. A piggy bank connector, gotta have that. Here's a Lego Mindstorm connection, which I'm sure there's a lot that can be done with that. Here's a really thorough system that Ray Freeman made. It's the edge panels. So basically it's all these different size polypanels, but they have clean edges, which helps you create much nicer looking end creations. You know, if you don't want everything to have those polypanel connectors on every edge, there you go. We've got some more connectors and snaps. We've got this really cool globe. Look at that. Here's a cool OLED holder. So, you know, if you need a screen on your electronic creation, polypanel it. Okay, now this, I know it's so low effort, but I love it so much. I tried. I appreciate that you tried, Cassandra, but you're not gonna win. Here we've got a wire sorter. We've got some cool spike polypanels by David Shorey. So maybe you guys follow David on Twitter or Instagram. He makes a lot of 3D printed fabric experiments, and he made these beautiful polypanel fabric panels. And these are really cool because just the very edge is printed, and then there's fabric embedded to the center, which allows you to print them a lot quicker and create really flowy fabric pieces. If you check Twitter, David actually did a full dress for Maker Faire this year, and he used these panels. Very cool stuff. Some more joints, some more coin slots. Here's another container system, these vertical slots that'll help you create little compartments. Here's some letters. So HT made this whole Polypanel snap system using circles that allow you to snap faces together, kind of like I did with my square connector, but this works with all the different shapes using this kind of universal connection system. And he also did letters for that. I thought this was pretty interesting. Adam made this Polypanel to anything adapter system. So instead of, for example, making a Polypanel GoPro buckle directly onto a square Polypanel, this lets you print it as two separate parts and stick that together, which I think could come in handy when it comes to printing more complicated shapes and making sure that you don't have to use an orientation that isn't ideal. I don't know. It's just very intriguing. I want to see more done with these. Here we've got another hanger system. If you want to make a Polypanel shower curtain, could be done. Could be done, just saying. We've got some Penrose panels here, which let you create Penrose layouts, which apparently are these infinitely expanding patterns that don't repeat, which is super cool. There's a little example of what's going on there. Crazy rhombuses. Here we've got a rail system, little planters here, which I quite like. Here we've got a wall hanger, that was called for, had to be done. We've got a picture frame. This is a Root 2 rhombus, which lets you create really nice shapes like this one here. We've got a phone holder for in the car, this little LED holder, another electronic panel. I like this. This uses a full display instead of individual LEDs, and that gets snapped into the Polypanel. And it looks like you can program these little matrices, which once again could make really cool larger displays. Polypanel turtle. Interestingly enough, that's not the only Polypanel turtle that was submitted, but this one's a planter. We've got Braille Polypanels, we've got an eye hole if you want to make a mask. We've got a magnetic version of my handle so you can create magnetic clasps. Ooh, I definitely want to share this video by Neil on his Polypanel pixels. So it's another one of those LED panels, but Neil is actually the only one that I've seen who combined several of them together and demonstrated them being programmed to work with each other. So that's definitely worth noting. And they're colorful. So just take a look at that. Fully programmed LED pixel panels. I love it. A Hot Wheels track connector, that's pretty cool. You can make some very unique Polypanel Hot Wheel creations. This model is really cool. This is a giant Viking ship. So this is just made with the regular panels, but it's basically a very well-documented plan of how to build this ship and all the panels you need to do it. I really appreciate the work that was done here in creating all these instructions. There it is, the second turtle, and Allison painted it, which is really nice. Seems like a fun little craft project. Paint your Polypanel turtle. This kind of hinging Polypanel, which is a very interesting design. It rotates, and it's printed in one piece, which is really cool. We've got this kind of little spinning top system, which lets you build different tops. Maybe that would be fun to experiment with what works and what doesn't, you know? It could teach you a little bit about physics. I mean, just take a look at all this. Very interesting stuff. Here we're getting towards the end of the competition, so more of the designs weren't actually printed, but just Tinkercad designs, but you know, go ahead and check them out and try printing them. Here's that center joint that Brian used for his shaft system, and like I said, and like you saw, a lot of people did similar things to this, but this one's done really well because the way it's designed is still very strong. It doesn't make the part weaker. I actually printed one out because it was so cool, and it definitely makes more structurally sound parts. Could be great for building Polypanel furniture and things like that. Here's a Filigone adapter. So if you're not familiar with Filigones, I actually learned about them after I made my Polypanels, but they're pretty much a predecessor to Polypanels. The idea is very similar, although it's made more specifically for just creating really cool polygons. And yeah, I'm glad that the creator made the adapter because they actually have a lot of filigons that I don't have as polypanels yet. All sorts of different rhombuses and multi-sided polygons and different triangles. Here's another photo frame, another one of those printer adapters, more pole holders, desk connectors, more flexi panels. There we go, winding it up with all the final submissions. Got a cool caster mount. We've got a heart with my name inside of it. It's a good design. You know, there are things that you're like, why would I need that? But one day someone will need it and it'll be there. It's awesome. All right, so there you have it. That is all the submissions for this competition. Not to say that more people haven't made Polypanels since then. I have a separate collection of panels, and I'm hearing through the grapevine from a little birdie that MyMiniFactory might create an actual Polypanel category so that it's easy to submit Polypanels in the future. Because even though this competition is over, I definitely want to see more panels coming into the world. I'm gonna keep making them. I hope you guys keep making them and taking advantage of them and creating awesome Polypanel creations. It's so cool. This is so much bigger than me now. All right, there you guys have it. That is all the submissions for the Polypanel competition. As you can see, there were a ton of fantastic entries. It was really hard for me to make a choice as to which ones should win the top 3 prizes. There's so many deserving entries, and I just want to say thank you all so much. Whether or not I select you as the winners, you've all helped build the Polypanel system and make it better for everyone. So give yourself one of those, maybe even one of those. Starting with the 3rd place prize, a $100 certificate to spend at the Snapmaker online store. The winner is the Pixel Polypanel by Neil Vandermeer. I'm sorry, I know I'm gonna butcher your name. Neil Vandermeer. Congratulations, Neil, you won 3rd place. As I said, there were a lot of people that did these different pixel polypanels, but you were the one who actually combined several together and programmed them to create patterns and change colors and work together, all within the very short amount of time that you had for this competition. I'm thoroughly impressed, and I really want to see more being done with those. Hopefully I can get my hands on some as well to make some light up polypanel pixel walls or shapes. It's just a really cool, well executed design. So congratulations on 3rd place. 2nd place, this prize is specifically for the person who presented their polypanel creation really well. So it's kind of a combination of best creation and best presentation thereof. This prize has got to go to Brian Allison and his shaft system, because the system is so cool. And then Brian went above and beyond and created this really lovely presentation, this GIF animation showing it in action. And just the fact that he built this whole system that works is pretty mind-blowing. So Brian, you want 2nd place? You're getting yourself a brand new Snapmaker 2 3D printer, the A100. It's kind of the smaller version, but it's still a brand new 3D printer, and I hope you love it. All right, finally it's time to declare the 1st place winner. And for this one, I just wanted to choose a submission that was done really well overall. Great photography, great design, great presentation, demonstration, and just something that actually contributes a lot to the Polypanel system. So the winner of the Snapmaker 2 A200 printer is Brody Fairhall with his Polypanel Robot Kit 1. Yeah, Brody really deserves this prize. His Polypanel tank is super impressive. I actually followed along with his progress as he was figuring out how to get it to work. The fact that it works with standard polypanels is really awesome. And not only is it the tank, it's the whole kit, so you can build infinite things, you know? Brody also had several submissions. So he had his LED panel, which I loved, his Lego connectors, his PVC connectors. Congratulations, Brody. Congratulations to the other winners. Thank you to everyone who participated in this competition. I can't say it enough. You're all winners because you're all making the Polypanel system so awesome for everyone. Consider it community service in some ways. Oh, and thank you everyone else, all you viewers. You're watching this video, you're supporting Polypanels in that way as well. Gosh, this was a long video because I had a lot of people to recognize. So many great panels. Such an awesome competition. Thank you to MyMiniFactory for helping me put this together. Thank you to Snapmaker for providing the fantastic prizes. Yeah, it was fun. I can't wait until the next one. Cassandra, you also get a prize. Your panel made me laugh, so reach out to me and I'll send you something as well. All right, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being part of the team. Until next time, I'm Devin. This is Make Anything. And as always, stay inspired.